Variables and functions. Think of variables as boxes that contain information. You need a different type of box for each type of information. We start our variable definition by saying what type of box we would like. For example, the word int for an integer, meaning a whole number. Then we might name that box in order to identify it. Then we could finish declaring that variable by putting a semicolon on the end. Or we can give our box some information to hold. For example, the number 5. The first part of this is the declaration, and the second part is the initialization, where the actual box gets assigned some information to store. If we want to actually do something with it, let's put it into a function. As you may see, when you make a new script, we're given a start and update function. Start is called when the object this script is attached to enters a scene. We can put in debug.log to get the value of any variable in our game. So let's take that myInt and put it in there. If I were to just log the value of that, I'll see it in the console in Unity. If I save that script and attach it to, let's just create an empty object and assign the script to it. So when I press play, I see the value of myInt shown in there. So that variable is going to maintain that value until we give it a new value. For example, we could use the value of that variable with another integer. So here I'm multiplying by 2. So now the console will read out that integer times by 2. So 5 times by 2 is 10. And of course, if we were to reassign that value, we'll get a different value as we go along. So if I was to say myInt equals 55, then although it was initialized at a value of 5, this has reassigned that value to 55. And now we'll get a value of 110. So if I save my script, press play again, you can see I get 110. To do something more detailed with our boxes or variables as they're known, we need to make a function, also known as a method. A function will take the boxes that we have storing information and give us boxes back, or return as it's known. The start function that I've just put in is an example of a function that doesn't return anything, so its type is void. When we make our own function, we can give it a specific type of box to return. So I might say int as a type for the function and then give it a name. So I might call this function multiply by 2. Because that's what it's going to do for us. Then the function can have parameters. So we need to give a certain type of parameter to this function. So I'll say integer again, because that's the kind of information that I want to be able to feed this machine in order to get a result back from it. Keep in mind that the inner workings of our machine happen between these curly braces. So whilst the variable or parameters are within round brackets, you'll see that the curly braces open and close around the actions that are in our function. So where I've written int number here, I've effectively created a temporary variable called number that's part of my machine. And I'm going to use that in order to feed a number into this function when I call upon it in a moment. Within this machine, I'm going to create another temporary variable, and then I'm going to perform an operation upon it. So I'm going to create another integer called ret, short for return. Then I'm going to use that variable and say it's equal to the number variable multiplied by 2. Then I'm going to use this return command so that the actual result of running this function is that it outputs the value of ret. Once I've done that, I need to actually call it. So I'm going to go back to my start function and I'm going to call multiply by 2. And then instead of putting a new variable into my brackets, I'm going to feed in something to be stored within number. So this time I'm going to feed in myInt. It will work in that because it's of the same type as the variable number. So this time I'm feeding myInt, a value of 5, into my machine. It's going into the machine. Then ret, the new variable, is equal to myInt, so 5 times 2, and it's returned ret. So the resultant return of multiplying by 2 will be 10. But in my start function, I'm simply calling my multiply by 2 function. So this currently represents 10 because I'm feeding in 5, multiplying by 2. But until I do something with this information, no values have been changed. My int hasn't been updated with the returned value of this function, for example. So I could say my int is now equal to the result of this function. And then if I actually want to see that, I can use debug.log to see it printed again in the console window. So I'll save my script, switch back and press play, and I can see a value of 10.